Hey everyone, it's Hunt, and today I wanted to talk about a great book I recommend to anybody starting a new career, a new promotion, either within your company or a new company. It's called The First 90 Days, and it's written by Michael Watkins. Now, Michael started this out years ago. He was hired by a large multinational firm to help VPs that were being promoted to sort of hit the ground running faster, because they found it took new promoted employees quite a while to get up to speed. So they asked him to start working with these people to help them figure out what was going on and get more productive sooner. He started working on that and quickly realized that nobody else was doing this. This was years ago. And so he started making this his specialty and ultimately ended up writing this book called The First 90 Days. It's a great guide of what to look for and what to avoid when you're first starting out in a new position. Now, he's got some great war stories in there to kind of give examples. Like one of them was this lady was a really successful marketing leader, marketing department. So she got a promotion to a much higher level where one of the departments now reporting to her was the marketing department. And what happened was, as things started getting a little pressurized and she started getting under some pressure, she started to fall back to what she was used to doing, which is focusing on the marketing and acting like a marketing director, instead of the boss over-marketing and everybody else. And this actually caused a problem. So in the book, there's examples of how not to do that, to make sure that when you're tackling a situation, that you're looking at it with a broader perspective and not just going back to your old playbook, because you're playing in a new area now. Another great example is a person that was used to working in an engineering shop that had very mature processes. The company had been around for a long time. They had their routines down. They had a good budget. They had plenty of documentation, and they sort of had things down to a science. So he was hired by a buddy of his to come in and sort of help his engineering firm kind of get up to speed. And what this gentleman did when he got there was he started trying to apply the exact same processes and techniques he'd used at the bigger company in this smaller one that had a much smaller budget, less staff, and the team that was there already had to sort of grab and just work their way through any devices they need, any tools they needed, because it just wasn't budget. And he'd come in and say, well, why are you doing it that way? You ought to be doing it this way, which is how I used to do it. And what ended up happening was he started stressing out the entire department. They didn't have the resources he was talking about. They didn't have the maturity he was talking about, but he just applied that model right on top. Big problem. So the boss actually called him in and said, man, what are you doing to my team here? You're killing them. And he had to step back and admit that he was following it the wrong way. And then he started realizing why they bought what they bought because of their budget, and started bringing his brain power to that. And then it eventually came around and worked out well. So these two stories sort of reflect some of the key points is that don't bring what you used to do. Take the time to figure out what's going on. There's also great insight there into how to find the people that are influencers in a company, maybe somebody at a lower level or a higher level, or somebody that's the same level you're going to be working in. But you got to look up, down, and left and right to figure out who the players are and to make sure you're kind of getting in with them. So the key point here is to read the book because it has examples of different types of companies. Like, for example, it might be a startup where you're just figuring everything out and going really quickly. Then you need to apply one style to that. If it's a turnaround, which means you've been brought in because that department or that company is in trouble, you may have to make some pretty radical changes and some pretty big decisions quickly. You can't methodically just kind of plow at it. And then if it's an accelerated growth situation, then you got to figure out, okay, how do I keep that growth going, but make it in a way that we can manage it? And then if it's a realignment, that's a whole different strategy again. And then if you come into a company that's just steady, everything's working, and you're just sustaining the success, then you want to manage it that way. So these perspectives are kind of important. And what I like about this book is when you read this, these examples make perfect sense. You kind of go, that makes sense. I got that, but now I have that perspective. So I highly recommend this book. It's a great read. I think sometimes it'll scare you and sometimes it'll really motivate you. It has examples in there that will do both. But remember, if you're starting a new gig, you ought to be pretty nervous and pretty excited at the same time. And that's the perfect blend. And if you're starting a new gig, you want to try new things and you want to learn and grow, but you want to hit the ground running. So another key point is you want to make sure that your boss and you have defined what success looks like, so that you're not delivering A when your boss was expecting B. And because this is kind of the honeymoon period in a way when you're starting, but also the high pressure, you really want to have those candid conversations with your boss right away. So I hope this gives you an idea of how good that book is. It's on the bookshelves at bookstores right now, even though it's published originally years ago. That's how good it is. So I hope you find that useful and it helps you with your new gig. The First 90 Days is a paradigm shift type of book. It gives you perspective in a way you didn't have it before, but it's sort of instant. The minute you read it, you start looking at things differently, which is the power of it. There are a couple other books that really help you look at things differently and will help you be really efficient all the time, but especially as you're starting a new gig. So some more tools to put in your toolbox. One of them is this one, Getting Things Done. It's my favorite. Time management, list management. It's just a phenomenal book. Highly recommend it, by Dave Allen. Getting Things Done. Must read. I follow it. The other one is really handy, especially as a new leader, is Crucial Conversations. This is another phenomenal book. These guys started out to try to find out why certain people were so productive in companies. So they go and they're starting to check out these people to see why they're doing such a good job. And what they discovered instead is certain people had an uncanny way to talk to anybody at any level, regardless of their level, and get them to do things. And they began to realize that's a much bigger story than just figuring out how somebody's working fast. So they switched their focus and studied many, many cases of people in companies at all sorts of levels and how these particular individuals could talk to a president or a vice president and get them to change their mind when everybody else was scared to talk to them. It's a phenomenal book. It talks about making sure that somebody feels safe when you're talking to them. Again, it's one of those paradigm shifts when after you read it, your perspective instantly changes and it makes you smarter. And let's face it, we don't want 25 years of experience when we're repeating the same year, right? You want to grow and learn and get smarter every year, so you truly are building on your experience. And good books like these really make a difference. So I hope this introduction to the First 90 Days was helpful. I always recommend this to my friends and colleagues whenever I hear of them starting a new gig. So that's why I thought it'd be really helpful for you as well. In the information below this video, there's links to recommended articles and other resources that pertain to the First 90 Days. So definitely check that out. Please be sure and comment below, share your experience. This channel is all about sharing information and sharing productivity ideas and leadership ideas. So it's not just a one-way communication. Definitely put information in there that would help others, help me. And if there's anything you'd like to see covered, make a comment in there as well. And finally, I'd appreciate your help here. If you found this video helpful, please like it. That helps with the rankings on YouTube. And if you'd like to see more videos like this on productivity and topics like this, please consider subscribing as well. Until next time, take care.